Florence, Italy, the 14th century, the beginning of a new era. This era would leave behind the irrationality and brutality of the Middle Ages. Through the patronage of ruling class families, this age would become the model for a leader's responsibility to support the arts, along with the concept of the public's right to art. The great artists of this time thrived in Florence under the patronage of the powerful Medici family. The Medicis helped create this new era, this rebirth, this renaissance. This is art patronage, the reign of the Medici. In the 15th century, during the Italian Renaissance, the Medici family became the all-powerful rulers of Florence, creating an extremely prosperous republic. In addition, they established a system of art patronage, commissioning artists and sponsoring the creation of public buildings. In creating this society, the Medicis developed an ideal that would last throughout the centuries. This was the responsibility of a leader to support the arts. While the Medici family unintentionally created this responsibility, it has taken hold and has led to the present establishment of the public's right to art. Before the Renaissance began and the Medicis took power in Florence, there was a time racked with disease, death, and war. People had little time or money to focus on art. But Italy was able to move out of this dark time in the 14th century through the accumulation of wealth through trade as well as the movement of the papacy from Rome, Italy to Avignon, France. The papal move helped Italy break free from the constraints of the Catholic Church and the shackles of the Dark Ages. Italian culture shifted from a God-centered society into a man-centered society, which looked back to classical Greek and Roman culture for inspiration. This shift was known as the Renaissance. Italy was comprised of many powerful city-states who were ruled by wealthy families, such as the Medici dynasty in the city-state of Florence. The first ruler of this dynasty was Cosimo de' Medici, who was born in 1389. He was known to many as Pater Padre, or Father of the Nation. His artistic and intellectual patronage was a form of propaganda that helped him establish his power in Florence. But it was also a way for him to beautify the city and create a flourishing society. Cosimo sponsored the creation of the first public library in Europe, located in San Marco, and supported Brunelleschi in the construction of the dome on the Santa Maria del Fiore. Cosimo also commissioned Donatello's famed creation of the bronze statue of David.
So he from the very beginning, the Medici is saying, we are going to make Florence a great place, and it's Florence that we're working for.
Cosimo de' Medici unintentionally helped to develop the concept of the responsibility of a leader to support the arts, and his grandson, Lorenzo de' Medici, expanded on these ideas. Lorenzo de' Medici was born in Florence, Italy on January 1, 1449, and on December 2, 1469, at age 20, Lorenzo became the head of the Medici dynasty. He was known to many as Il Magnifico, or the Magnificent. Under Lorenzo's leadership, society, including the arts and artists, prospered. Following the example of Cosimo, Lorenzo used patronage to expand his scope of power, but also for his own personal enjoyment. Lorenzo's patronage had many different forms and intensities. The most generous sponsorship was that of Michelangelo. Lorenzo first encountered Michelangelo as a student at the Medici School for Sculptors. Lorenzo was very impressed with Michelangelo. He decided to let Michelangelo live with him and his family and be raised as a Medici. This is one of the many forms of patronage that were established under the leadership of Lorenzo de' Medici. Other forms included his commissioning of artwork and statues, as well as the construction of public buildings. The most common form was his sponsorship of artists. Lorenzo's court of artists included Sandro Botticelli, Leonardo da Vinci, Fra Filippo Lippi, and Michelangelo. Lorenzo's lavish public and private patronage was the first of his time. He is described by Niccolò Machiavelli as the greatest patron of literature and art that any prince has ever been. This flourishing of a patron society helped develop and establish the responsibility of a leader to support the arts. However, Lorenzo and the Medici family did not seek to establish this responsibility for future leaders and governments. They merely wished to create a blooming society and maintain their political hold on the city-state of Florence, but their extravagant patronage created this responsibility. Lorenzo's unprecedented patronage and prosperous reign did indeed come to an end. On April 8, 1492, Lorenzo de' Medici, Il Magnifico, died in his sleep. The city of Florence grieved for the loss of their greatest patron. With Lorenzo's death came chaos and confusion. Religious reformers claimed that Lorenzo and the Medici family had turned society from the humbleness of God to the excesses of materialism. These reformers exiled the Medici, and a new leader emerged, Savonarola. Savonarola, a Dominican friar and preacher, rejected the celebration of ancient Roman and Greek culture. In the name of a Christian renewal, Savonarola instigated the burning of the vanities in 1497, where Florentines burned items considered sinful, which included artwork and books. But soon the Florentine people grew resentful with Savonarola's oppressive rule. In 1497, Savonarola was arrested, and on May 23, 1498, he was executed for being a false prophet. With Savonarola gone, the Medicis returned from their exile in 1512 and ruled the Republic of Florence. The Renaissance continued into the 16th century, ushering in the modern era. This era would bring about new rulers and kings. These leaders employed the Medici's method of art patronage in their own societies. This can be seen in the 17th and 18th century rule of King Louis XIV of France. He was a lover of the arts and often referred to as a protector of the arts. The Medici's influence also extended to the reign of King George III of England, who founded the Royal Academy of the Arts in the 19th century. After the 19th century, the nature of art patronage changed. The system moved away from the sponsorship of individual artists to the funding of museums, theaters, and other artistic institutions. Today, we can still see the effects of Lorenzo's establishment of the responsibility of a leader to support art and artists in the development of the public's right to art. This is most clearly seen in the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 27, which states, "Everyone has the right freely to participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts, and to share in scientific advancements and its benefits."
The great thing about Minnesota is in 2008, we passed we're the one state in the United States to have the arts as a right in our state constitution. I think the citizens of the state of Minnesota, which I think per capita our state government gives more to the arts now than any other state. So I forget, Minnesota must have roughly 5 million people, and the amount our state government is giving to all the arts groups is really substantial.
The Medici dynasty created an extremely prosperous society during the 14th to 16th century in Florence, Italy. Through patronage, the Medicis developed the responsibility of a leader to support the arts, which influenced subsequent leaders. The Medici's establishment of this responsibility has also led to the concept of the public's right to art.
So for me, the great legacy of the Medici is that they made spending money on beautiful things acceptable. Not only acceptable, but expected. So the way philanthropy works today is the notion that if you have great wealth, you actually owe it to your community to return it by building beautiful buildings. Spending money on artistic monuments certainly was established as a key principle of magnificence by the Medici.
The Medicis created an ideal that people now strive to replicate. The legacy, the magnificence, and the brilliance of the Medicis continues to thrive today and will last centuries to come.